On August 7, 2025, President Donald Trump made a stunning announcement on Truth Social, his favored social media platform. The post, which quickly went viral, sent shockwaves through political circles and the broader public alike. In his message, Trump ordered the Department of Commerce to begin immediate preparations for a brand new United States Census, a move that caught many officials off guard and set off a flurry of activity in Washington. This new census, he declared, would break with long-standing precedent by explicitly excluding all undocumented immigrants from the official population count, a decision with far-reaching implications for representation and federal funding. Trump promised what he called a highly accurate count, claiming it would rely on data from the 2024 presidential election. However, he offered few details about how this data would be used, and the vague methodology immediately drew intense scrutiny from experts and critics. In a follow-up post, written in all caps for emphasis, Trump declared, "People who are in our country illegally will not be counted in the census." The message was clear, direct, and unmistakable in its intent. This announcement marks a radical break from centuries of American tradition, where the census has always aimed to count every person living in the country. It sets up a direct confrontation with established legal interpretations of the Constitution, which have long guided how the census is conducted. Unlike his previous attempt to add a citizenship question in 2020, a move the Supreme Court ultimately blocked, this new directive goes even further. It seeks to erase an entire segment of the population from the apportionment count entirely, raising the stakes for legal and political battles ahead. The timing of this announcement is crucial. As the White House ramps up pressure, Republican-led states are being urged to redraw congressional maps ahead of the pivotal 2026 midterm elections, potentially shifting the political landscape. With the GOP currently holding a razor-thin majority in the House of Representatives, any alteration to the census data could give Republicans a decisive edge, reshaping the balance of power in Congress for the next decade and beyond. As legal challenges loom and protests erupt across the country, the stage is set for a fierce and unprecedented battle over who truly counts in America and who gets to decide. The U.S. Census is deeply rooted in the Constitution, which mandates an actual enumeration every 10 years to determine how seats in the House of Representatives are distributed among the states. This process is not just a bureaucratic exercise, it's a foundational element of American democracy, ensuring that representation in Congress reflects the true population of each state. For 235 years, this has meant counting every person residing in the country, regardless of citizenship or immigration status. From the earliest days of the Republic, census takers have gone door to door, striving to reach every household, no matter how remote or diverse. The 14th Amendment, adopted after the Civil War, cemented this principle, specifying that representation is based on the whole number of persons in each state. This language was chosen deliberately to make clear that everyone living in the United States would be counted. After the Civil War, Congress debated fiercely and ultimately chose to count all residents, not just eligible voters or citizens, to ensure fair and equal representation for every community, especially those that had been previously marginalized. This inclusive approach has guided every census since the 1860s, upheld by both Republican and Democratic administrations alike. No matter which party was in power, the principle of counting everyone has remained a constant, shaping the nation's political landscape for generations. The rationale is simple yet profound. All residents, regardless of status, use public services, attend schools, visit hospitals, and contribute to their communities. To ensure accurate representation and fair distribution of federal funding, everyone must be counted, so that resources reach those who need them most. In recent years, President Trump's directive challenged this long-standing foundation, seeking to redefine persons under the 14th Amendment to mean only citizens and legal immigrants, excluding millions of residents from the count. Courts and historians have repeatedly rejected this narrower definition, emphasizing that the Constitution and centuries of precedent require a full count of all residents, not just a select group. If such a change were to succeed, it would mark the most significant shift in the census since the end of the infamous 3/5 compromise, fundamentally altering how America sees itself and how power is distributed. At its core, the very mechanism of American democracy is at stake, Because who we count determines who has a voice and ultimately who is represented in our government. The new census is a political weapon in the battle for Congress. With the 2026 midterms approaching, the GOP's slim House majority hangs in the balance. Excluding undocumented immigrants from the count would shrink populations in states like California, Texas, New York, and Florida, potentially costing them House seats. Meanwhile, more rural, Republican-leaning states could gain or maintain representation. The White House is urging GOP-led states to prepare for rapid redistricting as soon as new data arrives. Democrats, in response, are considering abandoning independent redistricting commissions to fight fire with fire. The result, a chaotic, hyper-partisan redistricting cycle with both sides vying for every possible advantage. The fairness of America's electoral map hangs in the balance. Nowhere is the census fight more explosive or consequential than in Texas, a state that has become the epicenter of a national debate over representation and power. With its vast and rapidly growing immigrant population, Texas stands to gain as many as 5 additional GOP House seats if undocumented immigrants are excluded from the count. This single decision could shift the balance of power in Congress for years to come, making the stakes incredibly high for both parties. Anticipating a heated special redistricting session, Texas Democrats took the extraordinary step of fleeing the state. Their goal? To deny the legislature a quorum, effectively halting the process and throwing the state government into gridlock. This bold move ignited a constitutional crisis and drew national attention. In response, Governor Greg Abbott escalated the standoff by ordering the arrest of absent lawmakers and vowing to remove Democratic leaders from their positions, further intensifying the political drama. The standoff in Austin is more than just a local dispute. It's a microcosm of the national conflict. A bureaucratic decision has sparked a fierce political war, with both sides digging in for a prolonged battle. The outcome in Texas could set a powerful precedent for other states eager to use the new census data for partisan advantage, influencing redistricting battles across the country. The entire nation is watching closely as Texas becomes ground zero for the coming redistricting chaos, with news outlets and citizens alike following every twist and turn. The battle lines are drawn, the tension is palpable, and the stakes for democracy couldn't be higher as Texas stands on the front lines of this historic fight. Trump's census directive is certain to face a barrage of lawsuits, likely ending up at the Supreme Court. The core legal question: does the 14th Amendment require counting all residents, or can undocumented immigrants be excluded? Legal precedent overwhelmingly supports counting everyone, as the Supreme Court blocked Trump's previous census changes in 2020. Now, with a formal directive, the courts must confront the constitutional issue head-on. Civil rights groups and Democratic states will argue the policy is unconstitutional and discriminatory. The administration will claim the president has authority to define who counts, arguing persons never meant undocumented immigrants. The Supreme Court will ultimately decide the future of political representation in America. The stakes? Nothing less than the meaning of democracy itself. Beyond legal hurdles, Trump's directive faces massive logistical challenges. Conducting a new census is a colossal, years-long operation, costing billions and requiring meticulous planning. There's no reliable database of undocumented immigrants, and Trump's proposal to use 2024 election data is unworkable. Attempting to exclude a group would erode public trust, making people, citizens and non-citizens alike, less likely to participate. The Census Bureau would need new procedures, retraining, and a huge outreach campaign, all on a rushed timeline. Congressional funding is far from certain amid deep political divisions. The result would likely be a massive undercount, undermining the accuracy of the entire census. The directive may be simple to announce, but nearly impossible to execute. Supporters of Trump's directive argue it's about fairness and the rule of law. They claim counting undocumented immigrants rewards states with sanctuary policies and dilutes the political power of citizens. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and others insist the Constitution never intended to count those here illegally. They argue that including undocumented immigrants distorts one person, one vote, and incentivizes illegal immigration. Excluding them, they say, ensures resources and representation go to legal residents and citizens. For supporters, this is about restoring equity and upholding the law. Opposition to Trump's directive is fierce and broad, uniting civil rights groups, legal scholars, Democrats, and business leaders. They argue the plan is unconstitutional, un-American, and logistically impossible. The 14th Amendment and centuries of precedent demand counting every resident. Critics warn the policy would create fear, suppress participation, and lead to a massive undercount, hurting everyone, not just immigrants. Excluding undocumented immigrants ignores their real contributions to society and would underfund essential services in diverse communities. Opponents see the move as a cynical attempt to rig the system and stoke division. For them, the fight is about defending equal representation and the inclusive values at the heart of American democracy. The battle lines are clear: who counts and who gets to decide. The impact of Trump's directive goes far beyond redistricting. The census determines the distribution of $1.5 trillion in federal funding for programs like Medicaid, schools, and infrastructure. Excluding undocumented immigrants would slash funding for states with large immigrant populations, straining essential services and shifting costs to local taxpayers. The policy would punish economic engines like Los Angeles and Houston, reallocating resources based on a politically motivated count. The Census Bureau's reputation as a nonpartisan agency would be shattered, eroding public trust in all government data. The damage could take decades to repair, if ever. Ultimately, the census battle is about the soul of the republic. Is America defined by exclusion or by representation for all who live here? The outcome will shape the nation's future and its democracy for generations.